Okay. The other thing I want to ask you about, this is a serious thing. We're having a good time on the show and it's all so lovely. But should we get rid of live calls forever and never take live calls again? And the reason I say that is that recently the feedback from the audience, from one part of the audience, has been brutal about taking live calls. And I like hearing from the audience in a way that you can't really do with voicemail. I can't actually have a conversation when we just play a voicemail at the end of the show. On social media, you can have a back and forth, but it's by text. You can't necessarily take the pulse of people in the audience. So I like live calls because of the sort of communication style that they present. But there has been some truly atrocious feedback from a contingent of the audience. And I know it's important to remember that most people we just don't hear from. So the people that are writing in that are saying, David, kill live calls because it's killing the show, it's a self-selected group that is so furious about the live calls that they're choosing to write in. Individually, the calls do pretty well on YouTube and on our platforms, but there are lots of general complaints about them. And the most common complaints are, the people are bringing up issues that aren't interesting, or they're bringing them up in a way that is really annoying to listen to, or they have like a horrible connection. They're on speakerphone. They can't seem to spit out the question, whatever. And the suggestion has been made for us to screen calls. In other words, for Pat or Max to like talk to the caller and do some kind of vetting and then put them back into our hold queue so that I can pick up. Without going into details, the phone system we have and the workflow we have, it just wouldn't allow for that right now. So our current setup does not allow for that. So the way it works is I just see an area code and I pick up on it and I am hearing from the caller for the first time at the same time that the audience is. That's the system that we have, and that's the system we would have to use. I'm not ending live calls right now. We are still doing live calls on tomorrow's program, the Friday show, as we normally do. But I do want to hear from the audience more broadly. And the reason I'm mentioning it is when I don't ask for feedback, the feedback is subject to self-selection bias, and people that really want to end live calls are the only ones who email. So I would love to hear from people, no matter what your opinion is about live calls, so that hopefully we can make some kind of decision about it. Yeah. I like it. Some weeks it's great, and some weeks it's not so great.
I feel like less than half the time we get a quality call. The thing is, though, when we do get a quality call, it's a gem. Either it includes an awesome debate between you and the caller, or it's just funny in some way. And that's why I don't want to see the segment go, personally.
Much like grabbing your phone and scrolling through social media, the reason that that can be so addictive is that it is a variably timed reward thing. You might get on Facebook and have 10 great notifications, or you might not. And that's what keeps you checking it, because those notifications release dopamine and you get more and more addicted to, oh, sorry, I went into Alex Jones mode. Anyway, you get addicted to it. It's a similar dynamic with live calls, where when we take a call, it could be another 500,000 views on YouTube clip, like that time when 3 days after the election, some college kid called in saying he voted for Trump, and within 3 minutes he had realized that he made a major mistake.
I love that.
And it got like 500,000 views on YouTube. Or it's, you know, questions about what's my love life doing these days, which maybe is of interest to some people, but not to most in the audience.
Yeah, and maybe the solution is to reduce the number of live calls. We used to do just one segment of calls every week, and now we alternate, so we'll either do one or two.
Or two every other, yeah.
So we could bring back the classic interviews every single week, but we got to hear from the audience.
That's a possibility. Yeah, so let me know. We're not thinking about doing more live calls, okay? So if you're worried that we're going to do more live calls, let me stem the tide of concern, because we are not doing more. But what we want to figure out is whether we should cut it out altogether.